It's difficult for people. I mean, so in Texas, obviously, if you file a divorce, you can get divorced in 61 days, basically. So 60 days after you file for divorce, you can finalize it. You can have it done and be divorced.
And you can sign an agreement before then.
Right. That kind of handles everything. But the official divorce will happen that day. So that's by law. That's, to let people cool off and maybe reflect a little bit and decide maybe it is something they want to go forward with or not. From the standpoint of as a judge, you're looking at it like, oh man, I can tell this is going to be one it's going to be lingering. This is going to be an issue. They're going to be coming back.
You're going to know them well.
Because they can't get along until it really gets down to the point where people just run out of money. That I've been back to visit. So my grandfather, he was my hero. So I have all of his medals and things
cool.
that from World War II.
Wow.
But none of the things we really brought with us. So and then my grandfather joined up with one of those divisions when it was pushing through in what was now Ukraine. So he lived in what is now Ukraine, but back then it was Poland. And he, helped liberate Poland and, kind of reconstituted the country after World War II.
What's it like for you to go to a place like Auschwitz?
Well, I mean, it's an odd thing. Again, I know where I am these days and know where I am comparatively speaking to where I could have been, I guess. But it's a very, very sombering or sobering in some respects as well. But it's a very somber type of place. It's very quiet. People are always very moved emotionally by being there, and I've been there a couple times. And it's not a fun place. It's not. I think everybody should be required to go and see it. That's not something that people can avoid or should avoid. But it's not a happy place, but it is a required visitation if you're a tourist in that part of the world to go see what that all entailed.
The justice moves slow is probably the biggest difficulty we have with clients because they are
impatient.
Well,
they can be.
I mean, yes, they are.
They don't understand the process.
And it's very, very difficult for them to just be in it, and they just want the pain to stop.
They want it to be over.
And a lot of times with divorce, though, one of the things, not always the case, but sometimes there are things where clients want things to be over, and I go, that this is not over just because the judge says this, or even when we get this order. There's a lot of problems that happen in family law that are going to be consistently happening even after an order gets in place, or just because there's a divorce and we get, here's your time, here's their time, and all the things lined out for what it's going to be, that there are plenty of things that are still going to be problematic for people. And some of the times I tell them, look, right now, I know you're worried about what this ultimate unknown is going to be, but right now it's going to be just like it is now. A lot of times we solve their problem in a certain amount early on, and then we know that there's going to be an agreement ultimately, or there'll either be a trial. We know how the trial is going to come out. They're already under temporary orders or agreed. We don't even need temporary orders because you're living your life here, they're living their life here, and the worry about the future is it's going to look exactly the same. So there's a lot of these different things that we have to explain on our end to the clients, but.
It's difficult for people. I mean, so in Texas, obviously, if you file a divorce, you can get divorced in 61 days, basically. So 60 days after you file for divorce, you can finalize it. You can have it done and be divorced.
And you can sign an agreement before then.
Right. That kind of handles everything. But the official divorce will happen that day. So that's by law. That's, to let people cool off and maybe reflect a little bit and decide maybe it is something they want to go forward with or not. So that occurs, but I have cases that last for years. And many of the cases, they might have gotten a divorce, but we were dealing with kids until they turn 18.
Yep.
And so there's going to be fights. There's going to be issues of arguing about who picks up, when they pick up, who's in charge, who pays for what. Those things are ongoing, and people, I guess, are always surprised by how locked into the justice system we're going to be. Because I've got a 2-year-old on a case. I may be coming back for 16 years before that 18-year-old gets to decide what they want to do and who they want to spend their time with. Up until that point in time, the parents have rights. And so, from the standpoint of as a judge, you're looking at it like, oh man, I can tell this is going to be one that's It's going to be lingering. This is going to be an issue. They're going to be coming back.
You're going to know them well.
Because they can't get along until it really gets down to the point where people just run out of money, and they just can't keep going to court every year to try to, stick it to dad, stick it to mom, whatever. That happens a lot. And we see it. We can see it happening very well. And the people are impatient to the nth degree in court. They get to court and things are postponed, right? They get there and it's hey, sorry, there's all this other stuff happening before you. Mr. Palmer won't be quiet, and so his case is taking twice as long. He likes to talk, and so his case ran over the allotted time.
He thinks he's on his podcast for some reason.
Yeah. Let him talk. Just give him a microphone. See what happens. I was like, we're going to shut that down.
She's going to make fun. She's going to parrot you for the next 2 weeks.
Why shouldn't she? That's the
question.
She
should. She definitely should.
Yeah, no, it's...
You're not telling anything I don't already know.
Right.
Thank God Summer's not here. Summer thinks she doesn't want to be on the podcast, but on a day like today, she would be eating this up.
So one extra viewer next week or whatever. That's fine.
And I know Brenda's going to be... And both of you, they're going to be... Summer, you really should watch Tom Nowak episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's going to be a starred version of the podcast. The little clips floating around.
Palmer, I watched that Tom Nowak episode.
Yeah.
That's my favorite episode so far. And he's right.
Which is nothing else that a judge loves hearing more. Is that you were right, Judge. Thanks. That's why they pay me the big bucks.
See,
not really.
That's another reson why I don't want to be a judge.
You can't afford it.
I
Let
do
me tell
not.
You can't afford to become a judge.
No.
It does not pay that well. Let's just break that.
I have too many
idea.
employees. I'd have to. There's like about 100 people's lives depend on what I do for a day to day because of the number of employees that we have and their families and everything.
You got a production crew here, so it's it works out well. I could probably make more money being in private practice and doing what I do, but it kind of goes back a little bit to the service, giving back here to America. I wouldn't be where I am without the benefits and pluses of being here versus where I was. Maybe it would have worked out. I just don't know, right? But here, at least I know I had the opportunity to do that. And so that was evident from the beginning. And, yay America for providing the opportunities for anybody. We came here with nothing, right? We had nothing when we came here. We had a couple suitcases with some clothes and broken things that we brought with us.
Broken things.
They were broken. They were all broken.
Do you still have that stuff? Like
we have a little bit of stuff, but I have like things that I've gotten over time that I've been back to visit. So my grandfather, he was my hero, so I have all of his medals and things that from World War II.
That's cool.
Wow.
But none of the things we really brought with us.
Which service was he in?
The Polish Army.
Polish Army.
Yeah. So he was in World War II. So Germany invades, and then Russia invades, and then of course Germany invades Russia. So Russia brought back and brought back all the Polish troops that they sent off to Siberia and said, "Okay, hey, we're on the same team now."
On second thought,
here you go. Here you guys go. Y'all can have your own version of.
We were almost on the wrong side of history.
All right. So, and then my grandfather joined up with one of those divisions when it was pushing through, and what was now Ukraine. So he lived in what is now Ukraine, but back then it was Poland, and he helped liberate Poland and kind of reconstituted the country after World War II, and when
so he lived through it.
He lived through it. My grandmother lived through it. They lived through a lot of the Nazi occupation and issues, and dealing with a lot of that stuff. And we had concentration camps, obviously, and people getting arrested, and there's a lot of things. So I'm from Krakow. Outside of Krakow is a town. City, whatever you want to call it. It's called Nowa Huta, which just basically means new factory, and kind of goes back to some of the things I was saying earlier. What ended up happening is
the new factory a concentration camp?
No. That was built by the communists. So the communists built this giant steel mill not far from the city of Krakow, which was known for education and intelligent people, and kind of was where they thought that there might be some people fighting for capitalism versus communism. And so they built this factory, and then they needed all these people to come work in the factory. And so they brought all the people from the countryside to work in this giant factory. So those people needed a place to live. So they built this, what they would consider like a communist utopian city.
How'd that work out?
It didn't work out very well for them. Which is where all where I lived and where all the protests ended up happening later on in the 80s. But they built this very nice master plan city with everybody having new apartments and again, heating, plumbing, lights, all that good stuff that all these people from the countryside never had before. So it worked really beautifully for a while in some respects, and that there was a lot of this stuff getting built. And then of course it degraded over time. And but my grandparents' apartment's still there, and it's obviously still there. You can take like communism tours. They'll show you what an apartment was like.
Yeah.
You know,
That'd be cool.
There's somebody getting on a bus yelling at the capitalist pigs in their accent and driving them around in like, you know, Russian-made buses.
That's pretty creative.
Kind of fun.
That's cool.
So those things kind of happen there now for the tourists. But Krakow and Nowa Huta are basically a few hours away from Auschwitz. You can take a day trip out there and see that. And I've been out there a few times, and all that is part of, you know, the people of Poland and people who, you know, who lived there, who lived through it. And then people like myself, you know, who heard stories about it and did all that stuff. So my grandpa, since my dad left Poland, right, when I was a young kid, he couldn't come back. So he was here in the States. I was a young kid. My grandpa was my father figure. He was there. He was my hero.
How long was your dad apart from the family?
I want to say he left when I was like about 1 to go work. So that would have been like 80. So we didn't get here until 85. So at least, you know, almost about 5 years that he was apart.
So then from when you were like 1 to 6?
Yeah.
Wow.
Didn't know him. Like it was only through telephone conversations. So, but things like that, you know, you're asking about the stuff that we brought back. I brought back those kinds of things that are more important than, you know, various tchotchkes or whatever.
Yeah. Right.
So we brought those back too.
What's it like for you to go to a place like Auschwitz?
Well, I mean, it's an odd thing. Again, I know where I am these days and know where I am comparatively speaking to. You know, where I could have been, I guess, and how my life is different. Obviously, that happened before even, you know, my parents were born. So I can't relate to what happened to those people. Nobody really can. I don't know how you would be able to. But it's a very, very sobering or sobering in some respects as well. But it's a very somber type of place. It's very quiet. People are always very moved emotionally by being there. And I've been there a couple times. And it's not a fun place. It's not, I think everybody should be required to go and see it. That's not something that, you know, people can avoid or should avoid. But it's not a happy place, but it is a certain, you know, required visitation if you're a tourist in that part of the world, to go see what that all entailed. Very depressing in many respects.
Were you and your family at risk of being sent there?
Not really. Again, my grandfather would have been, because he was in the army. So if he was captured, he would have likely been sent there, or, you know, God forbid anything would have ever happened in the battles that he was kind of involved in. My grandmother was probably a little bit more closer to that. You know, my understanding is that she spoke a little German, so she ended up being a little bit more valuable in some respects as a person. But she was in a couple of periods of time where that was a very real possibility that she would have gotten sent there.
Wow.
And depending on what somebody caught you doing would have resulted in that. So
what types of things would people get caught doing that would get them
maybe
sent
you assisted somebody if you were to, you know, give food to a, you know, poor Jewish kid. And then they would have, you know, thrown you in there.
Take you out.
If you assisted in the, you know, the underground in any way, shape, or form, the partisan fighters that were trying to get freedom, any one of those things.
Did you see any of that?
No, I mean, in terms of, we saw the monuments to everything. I mean, there wasn't the kind of undergrad in terms of communism.
Sorry, I was living in World War II times.
I'm like sitting there
sorry,
going,
wrong.
he's a little young.
I asked the grandkid. Yeah, that's right.
Well, I thought you meant like, there's like a Polish underground for the communists, but there really wasn't. I mean, it was. I wouldn't have
Yeah.
seen it anyway. 6. So
I told you I'm not good with time.
it's a little bit not good with centuries.
I was only off by what 30, 50 years, something.
What?
20, what 80?
World War II?
World War II was when
Yeah.
the
1945.
45.
So
So-
80 years ago.
Well, no, but I was thinking in the 80s when you were there. So I was going back 80s to 40s. So 40 years.
I have no idea what you're talking about at this point in
Well,
time.
neither do I at this point. So
I mean, it was 30.
no, when I was
years
envisioning
before he
you, I was like
This
going.
is the part
did
they're
you?
going to cut.
Did you? Yeah, we should. Dana's an idiot sometimes. So you're gonna fix it. No,
I don't think
leave
you
it
can
in.
fix this.
No,
You can't
just long
unring this
form.
bell.
Let it be what it is. Okay, but
This is what Dana does
So-
in court, where the judge goes, "What?"
it's not what Dana does in court. Please don't destroy my
She
business.
was
while you're here.
86-year-old judge.
You don't
She's
have
12.
You don't
What
have
are you
to
talking
support my
about?
business, but please don't destroy it. Yeah. No,
She was born in 1916.
that would have been a question actually for your grandparents, because I was thinking, I was like visualizing what your grandparents and all that, and wondering what they saw. Are they? So they still live there?
They've passed.
Oh, they
That's-
passed. Okay.
They've gone. So all my parents have passed now. But so again, but we heard stories about some of that stuff, and they didn't talk about it too much. It's not something that is, again, like some
sure
happy
it's not
moments.
good memories,
Right. It's
yeah.
not good memories about a lot of stuff happening. So
are there any veterans from the Second World War still around? Because there have to be, right? Because
There are.
in the
There
40s,
are.
like they're around hitting like centenarians at this point. But
very close. So there are a number of them, but they are. It's the generation we're losing the fastest, obviously. So
yeah,
I get to spend a little time in D.C. from time to time, and I love seeing the World War II memorial and the honor flights that people will fly out and take them out there and take them to the various monuments and things like that we have there before they pass. So that happens quite a bit nowadays.
do you know any of them? I would love to get those type of people on the podcast.
I do have some. Well, I'd have to check if they're World War II. I don't, not off the top of my head. I mean, but we lost a few. Like here in Collin County, we've had a number of people who were World War II vets, and they've passed now. So it happens with greater frequency every day, and we're slowly dwindling that group of the greatest generation. Not really with us as much anymore.
Certainly the greatest generation out of the ones still alive.
Well, you can make a claim, I think, throughout history. What happened during the war and what happened after is the greatest prosperity the world has ever seen. So,
Well, that's true.
you can make a claim. I'm not going to sit here and I'm a history major too. So I could sit here and argue all day about various points in time in history, but that's for a different podcast, not this one.